So the sheet that you may have gotten, it will be, let's start with the 50, 30, 20. And I'm gonna break that one down first. And I'm gonna share that with you guys. And we'll shorten this video so that, for those that join and get to see it later, so you guys have this clear direction of where it's going. So I'm gonna share my screen.
We're going to start with the 50, 30, 20.
50, 30, 20.
Okay, this is pretty cool.
Right? So you guys should be seeing my screen now. And it should have the 50, it should say free annual 50, 30, 20 sheet. Now, you're not going to start on this page, right? Because, this is just a link. This is a free link that we're giving to all our clients. It has all the formulas built into it. But you want to make it your own and you want to save it to yourself. Like I said, like Amos mentioned, you're not putting anything that is too personal in there, but at the same time we want to make sure that you guys are safe, because there's like this, what is it, somebody's on here, it's like a
So we did send this out to a lot of the people in our community. Maybe go back. So what will happen is if you log into this one, you may not be able to make changes, at least on one of them. So the first step you have to do, because what's going to happen is Google, when other people are using, let's say, a public sheet or it's published online for privacy, they're going to go ahead and they're going to block who it is. So do not be worried. It's usually anonymous followed by an animal. So anonymous whale, anonymous rabbit, anonymous, I don't know, what's the animal? Dog, right? Cat. So other people are using the sheet. So if you guys are both in it at the same time, they may be copying it. Typically, you cannot edit those type of sheets because they don't want anybody messing it up. But if you make a copy of the sheet first, and then use the copy you made, the restrictions that are on there, a lot of them will be relaxed, and then you go ahead and edit it. So that's just the first step, is to go ahead and make that copy, and then you can edit it. But do not be worried about the animals you see popping up at the top.
Yeah. So it's file on the top left-hand corner, and we're going to go down to make a copy. And then once you're going to make a copy, you're going to rename the sheet. So for sample purposes, we're just going to take the word copy out and the copy of, and we're just going to put test in front of it, just to give it, to be able to save it, right? And we're not trying to save this with this. You can share with somebody, people, right? But you're not trying to do that, copy, comments, include. You're not trying to do any of that, right? You're just trying to save it. So we're going to make a copy. Once we make the copy, it should look like this. So as you see, it will make a copy. You can exit out of the other sheet that you have, and you're going to be able to now use this sheet as your main sheet. This is your sheet, saved to you. It's not accessible to anybody. You should not be using the old sheet. So there should be two sheets open. Just exit out of the old sheet, and now you have your sheet. Okay. You can always star it if you have certain things that, like if you have sheets, a lot of sheets, so that you have it on the top of your pin sheets. And then there's other options, moving it, see documents. Those are all like just basic functions of how you're using your sheets. But let's get right into how you're going to use the sheets. So the first page, if you read on how to get started, the instructions are pretty much all here on how to edit the sheet, right? So we want to make sure that we're editing it properly, so that we make sure that we don't mess up the formula of the sheet, right? So once you have that, you can choose your year. You can put today's date as display. You're going to be able to customize the sheet to how you want, okay? So we're going to go to the annual review as the main first. As you can see, it says go to annual review and select the year, right? So that's the first step we're going to do. So we're going to go to the first year. Says 2023. We're going to change this to 2024 to today. Let's put today. So 2024. So we just changed the year to 2024, right? And today's date is not September 6th. Oh, wait. Sorry. Where is it? Okay.
No,
September
it's not.
5th. Okay. Why is it not?
And maybe they're registering it as Friday. It's fine.
Okay. So maybe it's just the time and the time zone, but it should say today's date. But if it doesn't, it's okay. That's not one of the main functions that you want to focus on. Um, the we just want the meat and bones of our sheet, right? So then let's go back to readme just because I want to show you guys where the instructions lie. So enter the percentage here for how you want to distribute your income among the different categories. You can also give the categories different names if you wish. These names will then be displayed throughout the entire template. So needs, wants, and freedoms. So those are just basics. If you have a need for something, right? Needs would be like something like your shelter, meaning your rent, your mortgage, your day to day, your gas. I would say your car bill, your phone bill, right? Wants are something like things that you may want, things that you don't need, like that. Maybe I would say the Starbucks coffee, or things that you just want.
Sandwiches in the morning.
The sandwiches,
The bacon, egg, and cheeses if you're from New York.
right? If that's what you want, then that's the percentage you're gonna put, and then your freedoms, right? So things that you may be saving up for, or things you're looking to do in the near future. So you always want to have certain things, have some money saved up. You may use that for that button, but you want to split your categories. Now, 50, 30, 20 is reasonable. You could start there. But you can always change these around to meet the percentage you want. If you're in a place that a lot of your finances, like if you're in a place right now that you have a lot of expenses, monthly expenses, you may want to put this higher than 50%. You may want to put this to 60%. And that is something you may want to do because you're like, you know what? I may want to move this to 60%, right? And I may want to move this, then it has to equal 100, right? So it's based off of percentage, right? So if I can do once and I can do 20%, as you see, the calendars go, the formulas start to adjust. Okay. And that's going to allow you to be able to set up a budget for yourself. This is an annual budget, so this is for the year. This is great to do. Any time of the year is fine to do this. If you didn't start this in the beginning of the year, you could start this now. It's never too late to start, but I highly recommend that you do in the beginning of the year, create another sheet so that you're able to do that. Um, and I would say here, this one doesn't adjust the time because this is just like artwork. I would change that. And then now you have your setup. Now you have your years and your times, right? So now we're going to go back and we're going to click on the tab of the month you would like to fill in. So we're going to do September. Okay. So we're going to go to September, and September is going to tell us, okay, here, this is the month that we're going to fill in. Now, as you can tell, it's taking the numbers and it is separating the cash flow for us on what our goal is and what it actually is, right? So here's your income. So if your paychecks are consistent and you're getting, depending on how many times you get paid a month, let's say you get paid, 2 times every biweekly, then you will probably have 2 checks here. If you get paid weekly, you may have 4 lines here, right? Let's say if you do get paid, or maybe you have other, maybe you have a business, right? And you have additional income. So maybe you say this is the business income that I collect myself, right? Or let's say you get some type of support of any type, child support, alimony, any of that. We can add that here, right? So I'm gonna put child support here, right? Um, because that is income that you want to account for. You want to account for all the income that you're gonna get. Okay. Ideally, sometimes we may be short. So like if you're somebody that gets paid exactly the same amount every single check, great. Then you have your budget and your actual will probably be the same. But if you are someone that maybe this month, you usually make 900 from the business, but you actually made 800, you want to account for that. Okay. That's going to allow you to see how much money you were expecting versus how much you're actually getting. Okay. Here's the big factor. Budgeting, you should be doing this your September month we're 5 days into the month, which is fine. So we're doing that. But I would say the last week of September, before you go into October, you should be doing October. At least the budgets, right? The actuals you're going to get as you go, right? Because if there's some type of shortage or an increase, right? Maybe you get a bonus one month that you wasn't expecting. Maybe you do some overtime that you wasn't expecting. So maybe one of your checks is a little bit more. Let's say you were expecting like right here 1,500. I was expecting 1,500. I got 2,000. Maybe I did some overtime. I stayed a little later at work and I got some extra money coming in that I wasn't expecting.
I
Right.
like the fact how it breaks it down here. Needs, wants, and freedom. Um, as you're adjusting it, like one of the coolest things, I don't know if you see it right here, let me just jump in.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's shut off. Just so it shows it. Right? Like you really have a clear visualization of where you're standing with everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like even that budget portion right here, as you start to up these and tally whatever's going on, you'll be able to know like, okay, am I on track? And once you put a visual to everything, like statistically, they say people who have these things breaking down and use these tools are able to save about $500 a month extra on top of what they were doing already, right? So now it's just like, bam, if I face I might be spending too much on something, so to save an extra $500 a month really, really catapults things. It'll make me less stressed if I was worried about money
Yeah.
in that
And
sense.
and it's a good feeling. Like sometimes you may say, "Hey, you know what? I was expecting usually I only get paid 1,500 and maybe in the end of September I calculated 1,500 for my check. And then, for some reason I worked a little longer. Now my check was 1,800 or 2,000 like this example gives here, right? That extra money, wasn't accounted for, right? And there's a good like we don't want to associate just budget sheets to something negative. In fact, they're very positive. So if there is something positive, we have to take our wins there. That's accounted for money that we weren't expecting. So I think it's great. And I love that, like what Amos mentioned, like just seeing the breakdown of things that really makes a difference. Um, so over here on the top, you'll see, and I'm gonna go back to the README because I really want you guys to see how much the sheet is very helpful in that sense. Under the budget section of needs, wants, and freedoms, or whatever names you have given the categories. So, like, let's say you change the categories, enter the amounts you anticipate spending. In the cell below, specify what the amount is for. What you enter here will appear in the drop down menu under transactions. Okay. Um, so um so I want to so that part I want to go back to OV. Wait. Okay. September. We're in September. Okay. So rent. So let's say we're expecting the rent to be
Your
700.
portion of the rent to be
Yes, your portion of,
800 right now.
right? So 700 your rent, your utilities. So I think we should be a little bit more disc- Did he say realistic?
I'm sorry.
No,
My
guys.
utilities.
But
My
let's
landscape is
let's
150.
let's be a little bit more specific, okay? Specific is very important. Make sure that my mic is on. Um, so let's talk about light, right? So I want us to be a little bit more specific. So let's say we say our light bill, right? Because I think or I know sometimes in New York, for instance, people pay for light and gas together, right? So if you pay for light and gas, maybe you want to put light and gas, or you want to be very specific, right? Maybe you want to say Con Edison, right? You want to be Con Edison. I know some people in New York they pay Con Edison. I know in New Jersey they use what is it PSENG. Yeah,
Pico,
right.
like PA.
So you may want to be specific. The more specific you are, the better, right? Transportation, right? Like what other expenses are there? So transportation, maybe you take I don't know, the Metro North, right? But then sometimes you may take the MTA, right? So maybe you have a budget for both, right? So let's separate them. Don't put everything in small categories because that can mess you up because you may think, oh, I have this utility is a big bucket, right?
I like that better. That's a better strategy.
Yeah, I feel like if you put it all utility, it's like it could be utility, could be the light, it could be the gas, it could be the garbage, it could be so many things, right? Depending on what you pay for. So you want to separate them. So if you have a Metro North budget, which is like the express train, if you have an MTA budget, because maybe you have to take a bus, Con Edison, right? I would say health insurance, if you pay for health insurance, you could leave that one there too. Minimum debts. So before we go into minimum debts, I even want to go even further, right? Like if you have a phone bill,
be careful paying just the minimum.
right? Um, so T-Mobile, right, could probably be, if you have T-Mobile, if you have AT&T, right, you may want to be specific on what that looks like for you. If you have, what is another bill that you may have? Oh, you may pay for your, your car note, right? So let's put car note, right? So car note. So I'm being very, very specific, as you can see, right? I'm not I'm not I'm being very specifying on what I'm paying, because sometimes what we do is we group things together and then we're like, but wait, I paid this. Or my utility bills. Well, your Con Edison bill isn't the same every month unless you're in some type of payment plan. Your Metro North bill usually is about the same, but maybe you took an extra ride this month, or you're going to take an extra ride or one less ride. So you want to be specific, okay? And that would go along with that. Now, as you see, it goes calculating, right? It's taking the money here and it's actually going to start calculating like how much is your budget, right? So your budget right now is $3,900. It's calculating that your budget is, you see how it has an actual, and it will, if I put the rent, I'm going to give you an example. Right. Oh, wait, we're going to get to this. We're going to get to this actual thing. All right. We'll get to that in a bit.
That's what you really.
Yeah, what you really. So that's gonna go down here in the transactions, and we'll go through that. So this is really important, right? Now, I know you guys saw minimums, right? So minimums, we want to pay minimums if that's what you're doing as a snowball method or an avalanche method. But if you're not, and you're actually just paying, you have a set amount that you set up for your budget for your cards, that's a whole different thing. Like if you're just paying off debt or you're budgeting, they're two different things, right? Because some people have different methods of how they're going to pay their bills. So why do I say that? Because if you owe banks, let's say you have a Chase card, I want you to, again, be very detailed. I don't want you to say, oh, I have bills or I have credit cards that I'm paying. No, I'm going to put my Chase card. I'm going to put my Discover card in there. I'm going to put, what's an installment loan?
Student loans.
I'm going to put my student loans in there. Guys, if you haven't made up your payment arrangements, make sure you do. It's September 24th right now. They are going back into repayment. So make sure that you are very specific. And if you have student loans, let's even break that even down further, right? Do you have federal student loans? Do you have Nelnet as a federal loan? And then maybe you have an account with Citi with your private student loans, right? Because they did a lot of private student loans, right? So you may have them. Break them down because they're not all the same thing. Okay. And you're going to put your budget. Maybe my budget for Chase card is $100. Maybe my Discover card is $25, right? That's my budget for it, right? Because that's all I have. That's what I think I'm going to pay, right? Maybe my student loan is $50, right? My private student loan is another $50. Put your budget in and then set those up. Okay. Makes sense? So now we got the wants, right? We're going to go dining out, entertainment. Again, be specific. This is a little bit harder to be more specific. You see, they put internet, cell phone here in this category. I don't necessarily agree with that. But again, you know what your wants are and what you can live without. If you work from home, you may need the internet. If you have a cell phones tend to be a need at this point. But maybe, I'm gonna give you an example. I have a tablet line, right? I don't use my tablet line. That's more of a want, right? I use it when I travel. When maybe that's something that I may want to separate from my T-Mobile bill. Maybe I want to separate that. So depending on what you have and what you consider a want, maybe gym, right? Like there are some non-negotiable for people, right? So if gym may be one of them, but if gym is a need, then you put it in your need bucket. It's not a matter of being focused on the bucket. but really separating on what is a need for you and what is a want for you. Okay. Right? So everybody has different buckets. That's why it's so important to tailor it to you.
Visually writing it down.
Correct.
You will flip flop between what is needed and what's wanted if it's not written down.
Agreed.
Right? Everything becomes a need for me. Like, I need this gym membership.
Right? Exactly.
I need the highest level.
And even the gym membership, like, I don't like this, right? Like, for me, this wouldn't work for me. Like, I have a Peloton, so I would want to write Peloton, right? Maybe my Peloton's $50, but I also have a Crunch membership, right? And maybe my Crunch membership is $20, right? They shouldn't be all under the same bucket, because they are two different payments, are two different transactions that are going to come out of your account, and you need to account for all your transactions. Okay. And then same thing with the, like, hobbies. Like, be descriptive. If you know you have a birthday party coming up, if you know you have an event, be specific. Be like, I have, like, for instance, I have a Sunday brunch, right? So Sunday brunch coming up for someone's birthday, I can say, you know what, I'm gonna allocate $150 to that. Right? So it all depends on, that's a want, right? Because that for me is not a necessity, is not putting light in my over my head, right? That's just my personal opinion, right? But that is something I'm going to do, or I'm planning to do, right? Same thing with freedom, right? If we have a freedom, right, and then you have emergency fund. So what is a freedom? Here, freedom is set as, like, having your backup, like things that will help you to get that freedom, that flexibility with your income and your finances, and feel financially free. How to get financially free, right? So this may be the emergency funds and savings. And I love this because I think everyone should be putting, even if it's $20, if it's $25 aside every time you get paid. Right. So maybe your budget can't be $100, $300 right now, but maybe your budget's only $25. And that's okay. Right. Maybe that's all you have. Maybe that's what you have planned, because maybe you have a lot of needs. Maybe you, right this month, the holidays are coming, school season is coming. If you have school supplies you had to buy, maybe that was something that you had to allocate in your want bucket this month, right? So now you may have to come a little shorter on your emergency fund, but you're going to put at least something in there, right? Your retirement savings, right? Your retirement savings, maybe you have to put something in your 401k. Additional debt payments. So this goes back to the idea of, how are you paying your bills? So if you're looking to pay off debt, maybe you're putting the minimums down here. And this goes back to the minimums, because we always want to make our minimums to at least meet our credit obligations for our credit report, right? But if you have the minimums here, right, maybe you're doing a snowball method where you're putting an additional $100 to a credit card. So maybe you may say, you know what, this additional debt payment, maybe I'm applying this to the Chase card, right? So I'm gonna be very detailed as possible with that, because I want to know what I'm paying towards, right? So a budget, I'm gonna put an additional $100. Maybe I'm going to put, my child's savings account. I'm gonna put an additional $10, right? The idea is not for it to be these astronomical numbers. These are your numbers, so they have to be true to you. Okay. And then when we have our goals in our cash flow. So our goal here, we have our income, right? So our budget income is 3,900. That's our goal. Our goal is to be in our needs 2,730. So it's telling us, it's adding all of this budget up, and it's putting it here in our goals, right? It's adding up all our wants in our wants bucket, and it's adding up all our freedom money in our freedom bucket. Wait, this is inaccurate. Hold on, because this is definitely not 910. So I have to find out why is. Oh, I know. Okay, so we're gonna talk on that in a bit, but I'll explain that. So what is our actual breakdown, right? So we want to make sure that we're breaking down our budget and our cost of things, right? So we're going to go back here, and as you guys can see, this is where we're breaking it down. This is giving you the actual timelines of it. So for instance, enter the actual accounts, the spending transactions. We've read that before, right? It records the money you spend in the transaction section, right? So now we're going to talk about the transaction section. So we're going to go back into September, right? And then we're going to go, oh, I see. Okay. Now, I would say at the end of the month or midway in the month, we should go through our transactions, right? Certain things that we're going to spend, certain things that we're going to do. We should sit down and have. Now, this may seem tedious. I know a lot of people are like, wait, you want me to calculate this? This is a more, there are a lot of programs that do this, but if you are somebody that is actually wants to set up better credit habits, I truly believe you have to see it, and you'll be surprised when you pull up that um statement. It becomes very real, right? So we said that the rent was going to be um 800 or 801, right? So let's just put it here, right? And then we can put, we paid it on the first of the month, right? And then if you guys see, it's pulling up all the things that we wrote in the needs category. So if I was to switch this to the wants category, it's going to pull up all the stuff from the wants category, right? But I'm in the needs category, so it's going to pull that up. If transportation, I ended up spending it's because I already had the amount there. All right. Transportation, where is transportation? I had changed it. It's no longer. So Metro North. So let's say we spent on the Metro North, and you guys, you have to use the drop down, because if you don't, see how it input the amount there. I did the mistake of putting the actual amount. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to you're supposed to just put it down here. So that was my mistake. Yeah, and then let it calculate. If you went to the Sunday brunch and you spent, if I spent $100, maybe I didn't spend, the 150 I had planned for it, right? If I went to my Con Edison bill, maybe I spent, $80 this month in Con Edison. Maybe we did good and we turned off the lights, right? Freedoms, let's say the freedom, maybe I was able to put in my child savings, I put $20 instead of the 10 that I was expecting to do, right? So as you guys see, you go calculating, and the more you can maybe do it twice a month. Some people I would say, if you're doing it, I would highly recommend you to do the budget part the last week of the previous month. So this end of the month, you should do it for October a week before. So you have your budget set. And then you can do on let's say the September, let's say September 15th, you can go through 2 weeks of data, and then that kind of gives you an idea of where you're at mid-month. And then when you're redoing for the next month, which would be for November, you can set up your budget, but at the same time you can go through those transactions that you had gone through in the past. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to start calculating all the expenses that you had. Okay, so it's starting to put the numbers there and what is left to spend. Okay, what do you have to spend? See how it's filling in? Because I haven't finished everything, right? Like, let's say for the emergency, we'll do the emergency fund because it's the easiest. But freedom, we're gonna go here. We're gonna go to emergency fund. We're gonna I put 100, right? And I'm just doing this so you guys can see what it looks like. Retirement, I put another 100. And I put the $100 for my Chase debt. So there's another 100, right? And you can put notes. You can make notes on there. You could put the dates. I highly recommend to put the dates. But as you guys see, your spending breakdown is there on how much you're spending on what. Obviously, rent is usually the highest. But more importantly, it allows you to see what you have in your freedom bucket, what is left to spend out of the money that you currently have for your cash flow, right? And then as you guys see, you start to see the charts, right? Why do I say this? Hold on, I want to go back. So now I want to give you guys this overview for the year. So as you start to fill in the information and the information starts to make sense, right now we have some other numbers set for other months that we haven't done. We did September. But if you look here, it starts to calculate where you have spent every month and in your income, in your needs, in your wants, and in your freedom. It gives you a breakdown of how much income did you make, how much did you spend in your needs, how much did you spend in your wants, and how much did you spend in your freedom, right? And it gives you that breakdown for it. And it makes it a little bit more real. I know people have these charts with their banks accounts where they like kind of break down the spending breakdown, which I love because I think it kind of gives us an idea. But the problem with them, those breakdowns, is that if you don't have everything in one bank and you have some in American Express, or you have some in Chase, and you have some in Discover, and you have some in Bank of America, and then you have, unless you're using like a product like Mint or some type of calculator, you're not going to really see the actual spending breakdown, because it's not a calculating your brunches, it's not a calculating for the moment you put cash, it's not a calculating for the retirement money you put aside, it's not accounting for any of that money. So you want to have a chart like this. But more importantly, people are like, but why would I use this if I can use a chart like a Mint or a Cube? And I highly recommend those products because I think they're great. I like automated stuff, so for me that works. However,
This works.
what did you say?
Well, for me, this works because they say one thing is when you write it down, it becomes a reality, right? So if it's automated and the system is kind of doing everything for me, but when I write it down and I sit down, I say, you know what, on my hobbies I spent this much money, or my gym membership, maybe I don't need the gym membership with the pool today, right? So I may have to downgrade that. If I haven't been to the pool in the last 4 months, right, and I'm paying an extra $40 a month on my gym membership, I may say, you know what, I haven't used it. And now I'm consciously making those decisions as I'm typing it in here. So this is a phenomenal way. I mean, just a great way to really break down those expenses and go through it meticulously and find out, am I on the right track for savings? Am I not on the right? Like, think about it. I want you guys to ask yourself the question, right? Do I have 3 to 5 months of savings saved up? That's a real question for you to ask yourself, right? Ask yourself. We talked about paying off some of our credit cards. Think to yourself, okay, when you're watching this, think. The next question I want to ask yourself is, do I know the APRs on my credit cards? You start thinking like, you know what, my minimum payment is $350. Let's look into those APRs. How much is going to the interest? If my balance is $3,000, you know what I mean? I have to look into that and find out, why is it so much money? And if I'm only paying the minimums, or I can only afford to pay the minimums, or I've been spending more money on brunches instead of clearing out the minimums, maybe next month brunch I may not buy the bottle of champagne and make my own mimosas. Maybe I might just have one drink, right? But these are the decisions that are going to help us stop paying 28% interest on a $3,000 credit card. And we already know people have 4 or 5 credit cards. That's 3,000 plus 3,000 plus 3, or 300 plus 300. And now so much money is going towards the interest that I'm barely chipping away at the principal.
100%. This is more for you than it is for anything else, right?
Get out of debt. Get out of debt. Get out of it. It's bad. There's good debt and there's bad debt. Okay? Get out of bad debt immediately. You don't need it. It's not gonna help you. It's never gonna help you out in life. Bad debt is bad.
No, okay? And the thing is this, guys, like at the end of the day, you have to see it. You have to put the numbers in. There's nothing like the reason, they say that debit cards were created, right? Debit cards were created because you spend more, right? I mean, they initially probably weren't created for that specific purpose, but very quickly they pushed for that, right? Because you spend more because you just swipe, 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 right? You don't think about it as if you had to take out every time. You had to take out exact amount of money, right? And that's why, things like on Cube, which is a digital envelope currency, but back in the day, people used to use envelopes, right, to budget themselves because it would allow them to see exactly how much money was going where. And that was a skill that they had, that it sounds very antiquated, but it is a very useful skill, because when it's right in front of you and you're the one pressing the numbers and you're like, wow, I spent $50, wow, I spent $20, wow, I spent $150 when I only had to calculated $100 for this. It becomes very real. It's less about it being automated and more how it will help you, right? And how it's going to allow you to see um the numbers right in front of you. And here is a good guideline of the chart of what it is. Now, you have to use the chart accordingly. Like you saw that I actually just put numbers in, so the calculations were a little off in the September. But if you follow it to the T and you put the numbers where you're supposed to and allow the transaction calculator to do it, it will work. Okay, because the formulas are already built into the sheet. I want to share another sheet with you guys very quickly. We're not going to go into it in depth. I really like the annual 5/30/20 budget sheet. You again, does it have to be 5/30/20? It does not have to be 5/30/20. You can put 60/20/20. You could put 70. As long as you're trying to do it 50/30/20 is a good ratio. But if you right now are not in that place, it's okay, right? This is about real numbers for you. Now, I want to show you guys one more sheet, and then we will so we can see what it looks like. And this is a monthly sheet, very similar to the other sheet. Maybe you want something that's a little bit more about the expenses in itself, or the budget, or the talking about the cards and how much. This is a little bit more I would say about the month in itself. Again,
visually also it'll be good. What we could do is also go through it in still more detail again, maybe next week. But it's important that you see it, because these work, right? They work. I use a lot of these type of sheets to break down my expenses, etc. As I'm using it, and I want you guys, whoever's watching this, to incorporate this into your monthly process. And the reason why you want to incorporate your monthly process is because it works, and it will help you if you are struggling with debt. That's a bet. With debt, if you're trying to struggle and get out of interest or whatever you're paying, right? This is a massive, massive accountability tool, self accountability. We know, if we're lying, we know if we're lying to ourselves.
That's correct.
Right? I know every lie I told myself. All right. So it's important for you to take this to yourself and then and use it on a monthly basis. The first, second of the following month, just take half an hour, incorporate these. You can put everything into a sheet, break it down, and go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You need to know where your money goes, right? This is a little simpler. Again, we want to keep our privacy, so it's the same thing with the sheet that we sent you. We'll put the link below. If you're in our community, you have the links already. Again, make sure you make a copy first. Relabel the sheet so that you can save it. Okay. The goal is to make sure you make it your own sheet. So we're gonna put this one again, test, right? And is going to give you the sheet. Now I'm gonna share this tab. So now we just relabeled the sheet. So you should not be using the initial sheet. You should be making a copy, saving it into your folder. And then here is the monthly budget sheet. This is a little simpler. If the other ones seem very complex, again, don't be alarmed by it. Try to use it. But if you want just something that is just for the month and it's easier for you to see, you want something that you can put your budget, you can put, you put your budget here, you see the budget, the variables, the bills, the groceries, you can put the categories, right? And then your savings, your extra debt, and it'll break down your spending, what's available to spend, what's available to budget. And then there's two sheets in the bottom. So you have your budget here, right? This is where you'll put your how much your paycheck is, your little side hustle, right? And then you put your budget and your actuals. So your bills, again, I highly recommend you to be as detailed as possible. If you have rent, pay rent. If you pay your taxes separate, pay your taxes separate. If you be very specific on what you're paying so that you have a clear idea of what it is. Variable expenses, so things here again is not, this is not the needs, wants, freedom. I personally like the needs, wants, freedom sheet, but if you want something a little bit less cumbersome, um you can use this. Again, variable expenses, here you would just put everything under one, and then your savings, and then your extra debt. Okay, so your budget and things that you may want to pay, are you maybe you're paying down, you could put them here. And then it goes back into the tracker, right? So like once you pick the thing that you're doing, so let's just put I'm just gonna change this custom one here, and I'm going to put, I don't know, a variable, let's put that Sunday brunch again, right? And maybe I am putting $100 here. So then when I go through my sheet, I may go to Sunday brunch and I may put a description for it. Let me say birthday. And I ended up spending $56. So like I want to be very specific on what I did, right? Because this is gonna allow me to be accurate. So you see how it's $56 here. And then if I do Sunday brunch often for that month, um, here you go. If you prefer something like this, you can always copy this sheet, or you, so that you can have one every month. So if you want, you can label them by month if that's what you want to do. I personally think this is a cool sheet also for Christmas time. Because during Christmas time, you may want to actually see what you're spending, like variable expenses. Maybe you make this your Christmas list of how much you're willing to budget for people. So maybe you may not use this for groceries, dining, fuel, whatever. Maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to put names on these, right? And I'm going to use this sheet specifically for my budget for my Christmas list. We do have another sheet for Christmas, but you can use this one. This one is really good too. And maybe you still want to have your savings and you want to have the extra debt and all of that. And then you can see if you really meet your spending expenses. So this is a way simpler version of the monthly expense sheet. Um, and I don't know. I think this could work. Like
Absolutely.
again, it's less. Um, if you feel overwhelmed by the other one with the graphs and the sheets, and that's not for you, that's okay. We find a sheet that works for you, right? This is a lot easier to use. You can put your amounts here. Let's say I'm going to put this 1,000, right? Maybe I have another business like Amos mentioned before, and I'm going to get an extra 500 from that, right? But I really only got, I don't know, 250 from it, right? So it's calculating for you your bills and your expenses. Maybe I want to put, again, I would be very detailed with my bills. So I would put, the path or the light train, whatever you call, if that's what you you do, be very specific about what you're doing so that you can get those outcomes. Well, I think that is our budget sheets. I hope that was helpful.
I hope it was helpful for you guys. And remember, if you have a goal, you have to write it down. This is going to help you write it down. You keep the automated ones. If you have it, keep it. But this is going to help you write it down, and this is going to hold yourself accountable. All right. Share your success stories. Keep in touch with us. Again, you can find us on social media at AltoCredit. You can send us a DM. One of the team members will reach out to us. We can also give you some advice if you do have additional questions. We're always happy to help. Most, and I mean like a lot of our information is completely free. All right, so just join, watch it, reach out. We're here to help. Like, subscribe,
and
and
share.
share it. All right, guys. Good luck. Let us know
Bye.
if you
And
have any
we'll
issues.
attach the sheets onto this into the bottom description. And I'll also put our membership group so that you guys can have access to that.
Yes, and if you are not part of the membership and you are looking to work on your credit, you're looking to work on your finances, budgeting, etc., our membership group is complimentary. It comes no charge.
Yes.
Okay, very clear. I'm saying it. It's no charge. Send us a message. We'll send you the links to get in, and then you can start taking advantage of all the things like this first.
Sounds great. All right, guys. Have a great day.
All right, enjoy.